Welcome to the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. My name is Jeff Bronner, and I'm joined by Corey Akins and Andrew Kraft. Today, we're going to be talking about an issue that we see with our clients on a regular basis, and that is the need and necessity for estate planning. So let me start with this, guys. How are you doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing well. Yeah, doing well.
Good. So why is estate planning important?
Great question. So I'll try and answer that just with a story, an anecdote, if you will. So when I was in Texas with a former company, I was at a HR department of a junior college, and I just remember pretty vividly the folks there in the department describing a really rough situation. A lady had come in very upset because her husband had passed away, and his university retirement plan was going to go to his ex-wife. Not her, because that's where the beneficiary for the account was set up, and he never updated it. And so just thinking through your estate planning and the idea of what you want to have happen is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to do an internal audit of those things today because it's easy, right? Like it's not something that you have to go to an attorney for and get done, but it still falls under that kind of like overall estate that you want to make sure your assets are going to the right places, right?
Yeah.
And, if you're listening to this, most times you can find that online or whatever accounts that you've got from a retirement perspective and just do it in 10 minutes. And so certainly want to do that,
Yeah. But Corey, I've got my will, right? Like, why do I need a beneficiary?
Great question, Andrew. Thank you. So that's a great point. The beneficiary form will actually takes precedent over the will. So even if your will says my wife, like in that situation, gets everything, well, the beneficiary designation will trump what the will says. And it bypasses that, and it bypasses probate too. So like when you have whoever you want as the beneficiary in your account, it doesn't have to go through probate. The will does not affect it. It just goes to that person. Now, obviously, that can have implications, like you just said, but highly, highly important.
Yeah. And just like you said, the audit, just kind of checking that, make sure it is who you want it to be.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
And when you guys talk through the beneficiaries, you're referring to a retirement account specifically.
Yeah, great point.
In this scenario, so making sure that those beneficiaries are set on your retirement accounts. Well, how can an individual make sure that their other assets are operating correctly when they pass away?
Yeah, so I think the titling of those other accounts is important. And so, oftentimes we'll see a client come in and they'll have an investment account from another firm that's just their name on it. And so if they were to pass away, then that's where, the will kind of comes in because it's part of their estate. But if they had it titled a little bit differently, it's kind of like adding a beneficiary to a retirement account. And so, we just use the acronym TODI or TODI, but it's Transfer on Death Individual. And so that type of account then becomes a kind of an automatic with a beneficiary account, which is really helpful and just speeds things along.
Yeah. One other account that we've not mentioned too that or type of structure is like your life insurance as well, like making sure that your beneficiaries on life insurance. And mainly the overall theme is just as things change, like things don't stay static and life changes and happens. And so insurance as well it could kind of be thrown in there too. So yeah.
I was going to say another type of brokerage account that, again, it could be individual, but let's say that you're married, and so it might be good to change that to a joint with rights or survivorship. And so then if, one of you predeceases the other one still has quick automatic access to it.
Yeah. And so in that situation too, you have ownership, right? So like say me and my wife, we have an account joint with rights or survivorship. I die, she owns the account. Then you would have also beneficiaries for when she passes away too, or you would want to, right?
Then you could change it to the transfer on death individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really important, making sure that those are taken care of from just an account level standpoint, insurance contract standpoint, to make sure that those are going where they need to go when you pass away.
And again, Jeff, just on that point, not to belabor it, but those are all things that can be done without legal cost, without like
low barrier of
entry.
The
only investment is time, essentially, and a form maybe.
Yeah. So speaking of forms and documents, we want to talk about estate planning document generation. But before we move into that, I do just want to make a quick note to say we're not attorneys, nor do we play one on TV. And so nothing that we say here and in this episode is legal counsel. And we do encourage, if you have in-depth questions and want help with these things, that, finding an attorney to do so. If you need help getting referred to one, we can help with that as well. But we do want to talk about the actual generation of the estate planning documents and making sure that those are in good order and ready to, effectuate any sort of wishes and legacy goals that you have. So what are those documents? Let's start there. What do people need?
I think unpacking that phrase is important, because oftentimes, just as we work with clients and try and kind of nail in on their financial wellness, we'll ask, have you done your estate planning? And oftentimes that just triggers the idea of just the will. But like you said, it's a whole, package of documents. And so the will is the I guess, foundation of it, right? But then there's a few others that are involved. And I think one is called a living will or a healthcare directive. And then there's a couple of powers of attorney for healthcare and financial matters. So just kind of making sure all those are working together and are important.
And they're super important, because if you don't have those, you die in what is called intestate. And then the state kind of has their process and their own documents by which they take your estate and then divvy it up. And so, famous example of somebody dying intestate with over $150 million worth of assets is Prince. And it took 6+ years for his family to litigate, figure out what was going to who, and then the states had to do that. So it's bad enough that the state has to do it anyways. But the other thing is that the cost, right? So you think about the cost of that, not only on your family and emotionally and those things, but the actual dollars. So you're draining the estate to figure out who is getting the estate, and you don't want to do that. And so it just famous example. There's other famous examples too, Aretha Franklin, Amy Winehouse, but just kind of shows the need to at least have those basic documents in place so that you can direct where those things will go.
And something else I'd mention too, I heard about this from an estate planning attorney at one of the Financial Planning Association meetings I was at years ago, and she actually used the story to impress upon us the importance of it. Is that someone's child at UT was injured in an accident, but because they were a legal adult, the parents couldn't really get any information from the hospital. And so unless there is a power of attorney for that child giving, the parents that kind of information or authority, rather than they can get information. So these documents are really important to kind of seek out legal counsel and answer for that.
And speaking of kids, one thing that I think of too for maybe younger listeners is, Corey, Jeff, Andrew, I'll do this in a few years. I've got time. I would say let's go ahead and get it done, because designating like who will have guardianship over your kids is a part of those documents. And I mean, in my estate, that's the most important thing, right? And so making sure that they're taken care of, or at least you have directed who should have guardianship over them in the unfortunate event that you and your spouse pass away.
That's a really important point. And one of the things that oftentimes prevents people from doing this is the intimidation of the process, because it can seem like a lot. The cost is a big one, because it can be really expensive depending on where you go and how you get it done. One thing that I will note just at the top, again, we're not attorneys, but we do have a strategic partnership that allows clients to generate some of these foundational documents just to make sure things like, who's going to have guardianship over your children if you pass away before they reach the age of majority, that those clients can have that taken care of, at least at a foundational level. And so if you have any questions about this, again, we will helpfully refer you to an attorney if need be. But we're also glad just to help do the beneficiary audit and just talk through some of the basic legacy planning financial matters as well. We thank you so much for your time and listening. We hope that this was beneficial to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. This is a friendly reminder that all content in this podcast is intended for educational purposes alone. Nothing in this episode should be treated as tax, legal, or investment advice. We encourage you to consult your financial professional for any of those needs. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services LLC, Kestra AS, and affiliated with Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Sojourn Wealth Management.